Hey YouTube, this is Nina the Truth Seeker on YouTube and the Consignment Collective on eBay and Amazon. And there are a few pickers out there who talk about collecting these sports hats, the snapback hats. And I have realized that there's a lot to know about snapback hats, believe it or not, to figure out whether they're actually a small sale or could be something really huge, because there are some hats out there, if you do a search on eBay on the sold items, that have sold $200, $300, $400. And gosh, I wanted to know why. So I'm going to share what I found out with you guys. Now, out of this whole lot right here, I have a bunch more, but this is just a sampling of what I've got. There's only one hat that has any value, and some people might think that it's you know, maybe the one that's got a lot of design on it, like that Gordon hat right there, Jeff Gordon, or maybe it's this one that's got the sticker on it, or maybe it's that unusual, you know, beanie looking hat right there, but it's actually not any of those. It is da-da, 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 da-da. Where she stops, nobody knows, round and round she goes. It's actually this hat right here, the Cincinnati Bengals hat. And I'm going to show you a couple differences. I'm going to use the new hat as an example. So I want you just to look at this hat and tell me if you see any differences between this one. Let me put this here. Maybe I'll move a couple of the others out of the way. There's the underside. This one's made by a company called American Needle, which is definitely one of the ones that you want to look for. Another one that sells some really expensive vintage hats is The Game. So look for American Needle and The Game. There are a couple of other ones. One that you will see that is a relatively new company is called New Era, and you can see that they'll have this sticker on them, and that is the New Era logo, often embossed or embroidered on the side of the shirt. So you can see here that the inside of this hat looks really different than the inside of that one. So let's look at the first difference that you want to look for. In a vintage hat, the bill underside is going to be either green or gray, whereas in a modern hat it will be some other color. So there's one that's blue, this one is gray, so you might think it's a candidate, but we'll talk about a couple other features that you want to look for. So first thing to look for, green bill or gray bill. Depending on the company, there may be a certain number of lines of stitching. Some companies will have 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one only has 6. But I still think it's a vintage hat, so I think it's because this is an American Needle hat that it only has 6. There are a couple companies out there that will have 8 lines of stitching. Let's see what this modern one has. If I can count through the camera, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this one does have 8. Another feature to look for is in the shape. So let me get these out of the way so that you can see the shape of this one. So you can see that this one is somewhat rounded. There's a better example of what I mean here with this Ohio State hat. See how that's kind of rounded? The front is leans back. The front of the hat leans back, whereas in the Cincinnati Bengals hat it's very square in the front. That is another thing to look for. Old hats will be very square, and even when you squeeze the bill, there will still be that right angle up at the top, whereas if you squeeze the bill of a modern hat, let me do that, hard to do with one hand, if you squeeze the bill of a modern hat, it just gets rounder. So that's another way to tell. The third big thing to tell, obviously this one doesn't have any snaps. Let's grab one that does. Da-da-da-da. I must have one here. That's the other thing to look for, is actual snaps. So, here's one. May not be a great example, but this might be a little older, although it is a new era. It might be an older new era. So another thing to look for is the dimensions of the snaps. A lot of times the modern snaps, they're very, this isn't a great example, but they're skimpy on the material that they use for the snaps, so the snaps don't stick up that high. Let's see if one of these other hats, yeah, this is a good example of a more modern hat and how skimpy they are. So you can see that those snaps don't even stick up at all. Whereas in a vintage hat, they will be much more robust, and so the hat will stay on. See, even this one compared to that first one that actually had some decent amount, you can see the difference. So those are three things to look for in a hat. I'll look for the color of the underbill, green or gray. The shape of the front should be square, and even when you squeeze the bill, it should still have that right angle. Companies like American Needle in the game. And then the fourth thing to look for is how big the snaps themselves are. So I hope this gives you a couple of things to look for while out there looking for hats, so you know what to pay for and what not to waste your time with. Looks like I'm going to have a giant lot of hats to sell. Have a lovely day. Come back and see me. This is Nina, the Truth Seeker, and the Consignment Collective on YouTube and Amazon. See you later.